A disabled war veteran living on a fixed income in a modest duplex he'd bought with his own VA loan found himself sued for $9,000 by his tenant, the sitting mayor's own daughter. She thought her father's name would end this before it even started. Instead, it ended her. What happened in that courtroom went on to become one of the most replayed clips in Judge Judy history because nobody expected a city mayor's own daughter to threaten a television judge on camera and lose everything because of it. If you believe powerful families shouldn't get special treatment in a courtroom, hit that subscribe button. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Harold Jennings was 66 years old, a disabled Army veteran who'd lost partial use of his left leg to an IED blast decades earlier. After his service, he'd used his savings and a small VA loan to buy a modest duplex, renting out the second unit to make ends meet on his fixed disability income. 8 months ago, he'd rented that unit to a 24-year-old woman named Sophie Calloway, daughter of the city's sitting mayor, Richard Calloway. Sophie was suing Harold for $9,000, claiming unsafe living conditions, mold exposure, and emotional distress from what she called negligent property management. "Miss Calloway, tell me what happened," Judge Judy said. Sophie answered smoothly, her tone practiced and confident. "Your Honor, from the very beginning, Mr. Jennings was dismissive of my concerns. I reported a leak under the kitchen sink in my second month there, and he waved it off, told me it was nothing to worry about. By month 4, there was visible mold growing along the cabinet base. I have photos. I developed persistent respiratory issues that my doctor connected directly to mold exposure. I asked him repeatedly to fix it, and he kept telling me he'd get to it eventually, like my health wasn't a priority worth his time." She said it well, calm, sympathetic, reasonable sounding. A few people in the gallery nodded slightly. Harold sat quietly at the defendant's table, a thin folder in his lap. "Mr. Jennings, your response." Harold's voice was steady, though clearly tired from more than just the hearing. "Your Honor, I did receive a report about a slow leak in month 2. I sent a licensed plumber out within 4 days. I have the invoice. The plumber's notes state there was no mold present at that time, just minor water staining which he sealed and treated. Miss Calloway never reported anything further to me after that repair. The photos she's referring to, if they show mold, I'm seeing them for the first time right now." Sophie scoffed lightly. "I texted him multiple times about ongoing issues. He just didn't respond because he didn't think my concerns mattered, probably because he assumed someone my age wouldn't push back." That last comment landed with a slight edge, and a ripple of quiet judgment passed through the gallery, the suggestion that Harold dismissed her because of who she was, not what she said. "Let's look at those text messages then," Judge Judy said. Harold produced his phone. "Your Honor, I have the full thread here. After the plumber's visit, Miss Calloway texted twice, once to say the kitchen looked fine, and once 3 weeks later asking if I could maybe knock a little off this month's rent since things had been a hassle. There's no further mention of mold, leaks, or health issues anywhere in this thread until the lawsuit was filed." Judge Judy examined the screen the bailiff handed up. "This matches what you've described, Mr. Jennings." Sophie's composure held, but just barely. "I have other messages from my personal phone, not just what's saved there. I don't think it's fair to base this entirely on his records." "You listed a witness," Judge Judy said, checking her notes, "a Miss Priya Anand, who you say can confirm the mold and the unresponsiveness." "Yes," Sophie said. "She lived in the building briefly and saw the conditions herself." Before we find out exactly what Miss Anand actually told the court when reached directly, hit subscribe if you haven't yet, because what happens in the next few minutes completely flips how this case looks. I did reach out to Miss Anand. She wasn't able to appear today, but she provided a signed statement, which I have here. She held up a page. Miss Anand states that she never lived in the building and never saw any mold. She states that Miss Calloway offered her $200 to testify that she had seen mold damage, and that when she declined, Miss Calloway told her she wouldn't want to make things difficult with the mayor's office regarding a permit Miss Anand's small business was waiting on. The gallery stirred audibly. Sophie's face flushed, the first real crack in her composure. She's twisting what I said. I never threatened her permit. She's provided the actual text message, Ms. Calloway, Judge Judy read from the page. It would be a shame if the city took forever processing your permit application. Things move much faster when people are helpful to each other. Sophie's voice rose a little, defensive now. That's just how things work. Everyone knows people, everyone does favors. That's not a threat, that's networking. It reads as a threat when it's tied to a lawsuit you knew was fabricated, Judge Judy said evenly. Sophie's composure slipped further, and something more revealing came out. Look, my father's office handles this kind of thing for me all the time. If this had just gone through normal channels, none of this would even be necessary. I don't understand why this has become such an ordeal. The courtroom went quiet at that. Judge Judy let the silence sit for a moment before continuing. Your father's office handles your lawsuits for you? Sophie seemed to realize a beat too late what she'd just revealed. I meant, my father's staff sometimes helps with logistics. That's not unusual for someone in his position. Mr. Jennings, Judge Judy said, turning to Harold, did anyone contact you before this hearing regarding this case? Harold nodded slowly. Yes, Your Honor. About 10 days ago, a man identifying himself as someone from the mayor's office called and suggested I should settle quickly and quietly with Miss Calloway, and mentioned that my property had some outstanding code compliance items that could become a problem if this went to a public hearing. I've owned that property for 11 years and never had a code violation in my life. I checked the next day. There was nothing on file. The gallery murmured, several people shaking their heads. Sophie stared straight ahead, unable to meet anyone's eyes now. For a moment, something almost genuine crossed her face. Not quite regret, but something close to it. Your Honor, I want to be honest about something. I've had a really difficult year. My parents' marriage is falling apart behind closed doors. My father's approval ratings are terrible, and I thought if I could show up somewhere as a sympathetic victim, it might actually help his campaign, help our family look relatable for once. I know how that sounds. I'm not proud of it, but I never meant to hurt Mr. Jennings specifically. He was just available. A few people in the gallery softened slightly at that, uncertain now whether there was a more human explanation underneath the scheme. Judge Judy studied her for a moment before responding, her tone quieter but no less firm. I believe your family situation is genuinely difficult, Miss Calloway, but needing your father to look sympathetic doesn't give you the right to manufacture a health and safety claim against a disabled veteran who served this country, then attempt to bribe a witness, then have your father's office threaten him with fabricated code violations to keep him quiet. Being under pressure explains desperation. It doesn't excuse building a scheme on someone else's back. Sophie said nothing further. Harold spoke then, quietly but clearly, sitting up a little straighter despite his cane. Your Honor, if I may, I spent 2 years overseas learning to survive things a lot more frightening than a lawsuit. I never thought coming home that the fight I'd have to learn was how to protect my own home from someone who just needed a story for a campaign. But I'm glad I kept records. I'm glad I didn't just roll over because of whose daughter this was. The gallery broke to quiet applause before the bailiff called for order. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Miss Calloway, you will pay Mr. Jennings $4,000 in legal fees and lost time from this proceeding, plus $3,000 in punitive damages for witness tampering and fabricated claims. $7,000 total, payable immediately. I am also forwarding the details of the attempted witness bribery and the alleged threats made by your father's office regarding fabricated code violations to the city's ethics review board." The gavel struck. Sophie sat frozen for a moment before her attorney gently guided her out of the courtroom, her earlier confidence completely gone. "Mr. Jennings," Judge Judy said, her tone softening, "you handled this with more patience and dignity than most people could manage. Thank you for your service and for not backing down." "Thank you, Your Honor," Harold said quietly. Someone had to show her that not everyone can be pressured into staying quiet. Within 2 weeks, the local ethics board opened a formal inquiry into the mayor's office regarding the code violation threats, a story that made the front page of the city paper. Harold's tenants reached out to thank him privately, several saying they'd always wondered whether standing up to powerful people was worth the risk. He kept the plumber's invoice from that very first repair framed on his wall, a small reminder that documentation, not intimidation, wins in the end. Court is adjourned. Do you think Judge Judy's verdict was fair, or should Sophie have faced harsher consequences given her father's involvement? Let me know in the comments what you think, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because next week, another case is going to shock you even more.